We got a bidet! Hey everybody, and welcome back to another video. In today's video, we got the next discussion on the Kenobi series. We are on part 4 at this moment. They are just called parts. There aren't no special names for them, unfortunately. But we're going to discuss what happens in this episode and then our thoughts. So Tony was going to lead us through this episode this week. So what did we get?
Yeah, so if I remember correctly, it basically started out with Obi-Wan and the crew, minus Leia, arriving on this mining planet. I don't remember the name of it. And they bring him into their base, their headquarters, and Obi-Wan gets in a bacta tank because he was burned in the last episode. And there's this really cool edit that cuts between Obi-Wan in the bacta tank and Vader in the bacta tank. And then I'm guessing Obi-Wan felt the connection through the Force becoming too strong with Vader. That's just how I interpreted it. So then he stopped and he like poked his head out of the bacta tank and asked where Leia was. And then it cut to him. He now has Jedi robes on. Or at least what looks like Jedi robes. I don't know if they're official. And trying to figure out with the team what to do next, saying, hey, we have to go get Leia, obviously. And some of the crew members there are kind of like, no, man, like, that's not a good idea. I don't want to do it. But then there was one character, and I can't think of the actor's name, that eventually came around because his wife was Force sensitive and was taken by the Empire. So they agreed to help in that way. So Obi-Wan and the double agent Imperial officer lady that he met in the last episode, they go to the what's the building called? What, Inquisitorius?
Fortress Inquisitorius.
Fortress Inquisitorius. And the officer lady, she kind of sneaks in through basically the front door, trying to use her credentials to kind of sneak by. Obi-Wan swims under the base, very reminiscent of Fallen Order, and she kind of weasels her way through security, and then opens a gate for Obi-Wan. And then basically a good chunk of the episode is her trying to evade people that are kind of being suspect to what she's doing. And Obi-Wan sneaking through the base. Meanwhile, Leia is being interrogated by Reva. Obviously, Reva's trying to figure out where Obi-Wan is. Leia's obviously not saying anything. She tries to trick Reva, doesn't really work. And then Leia is taken to basically like a torture room. And right before they begin the process, Reva gets called away again by the officer lady, and that allows Obi-Wan to shut off the lights and take out the stormtroopers in a very cool way, very reminiscent to Force Unleashed. And then he saves Leia, and then in there somewhere the undercover officer, like the jig is up, and she tries to have them escape. Some of the in their escape, the windows break and water's about to get in. Obi-Wan uses the Force to keep it away, and then they all kind of manage to escape at least that part. But they still need to get out of the hangar. So apparently Obi-Wan thinks that the Empire is very, very dumb, because he then just puts on a really big coat and puts Leia inside and wears a little hat and thinks nobody will notice, apparently. And they try to sneak out that way. They get caught. Imagine that. And then the the people that they met at the start of the episode comes in with the ships from I can't think of the name of them, but it's the one they used in the Battle of Hoth, and kind of save them. Leia or the whole team got in one of the ships and they flew away, but the other person was caught, unfortunately, but the crew managed to escape. And then the end of the episode shows that, and Darth Vader storms down the hallway back in the fortress and is very mad at Reva for letting them escape. And she reveals that she put a tracker on them, and it turns out to be Leia's droid. End of episode.
Nice. Yeah, it was a really good recap. I like that you pointed out a couple of the different callbacks to different things as well. I also think that when he was holding the water in the glass, I think that was part of Fallen Order as well.
Yeah, because Vader held back the water.
Yeah, that's how they got away.
Yep.
Thoughts? What did you think, Sarah?
Overall, I liked the episode. I didn't think it was like super fantastic or anything, but it was all right. The trench coat thing with trying to hide Leia inside, and at one point she even like pokes her head out to peek and see what's going on. That was kind of fishy. I feel like there had to have been other ways that were better to do that. And they had their own ship there, so I don't know why they couldn't just hop on that and fly away. And they had to have the backup come. It seemed kind of too coincidental to me that they happened to show up right at the time to save them. But there were some cool parts too. So
I'm just thinking to myself, because I think like if before they would have been able to board that ship, they were figured out already. And I think if they would have ran into it, all the guns around them would have blasted that ship on the spot. Without the other people showing up, like if that's how they would have went about it. I kind of have the same thoughts in a way. I do think this episode is probably the weakest of the four. I liked the different callbacks that they did. There was a couple of them I didn't notice right away, and I, saw the different Facebook reels that showed a handful of the connections. Like the security droid apparently was the same droid used in Battlefront 2. Same type of droid, not like the droid. Yeah, I'm still a little not believing the fact that he can walk through the place so much with, his Jedi robes and stuff, which I do want to talk about in a minute after Tony gives his thoughts on the episode. But the walking out with the robes that they did, like the trench coat and her inside, that one was like, they're really trying to poke at us, because that's probably one of the number one things that we're all complaining about, is that he's walking around looking like a Jedi and nobody's noticing it. And now that he has this obvious trench coat, it's about time he got caught. Curious to see where the rest of this goes. The one thing that I think would have made the episode a bit better for me is if somebody would have died. That would have been significant, because I know we lost somebody as they were, taking off. There was an explosion that was thrown, or like a explosive that was thrown at one of the snow speeders, and then they fell out of the sky. But that character that died really didn't have any attachment to.
Was he the one that lost his Force-sensitive wife?
No,
was that the
because
same guy?
He was at the base waiting for him.
Okay.
He was the one that was talking to the girl, and she looks incredibly upset, which is probably like what we were supposed to feel, but we didn't, because we didn't even know who it was.
Right.
So I think if like the double agent would have been killed in the process, or some people may really argue that they wanted this, if Vader would have killed Reva, and did something significant, I think it would have added a little bit more to the episode. Just to see somebody that we're used to being around dying, and giving that sense that not everybody is safe, that we've grown attached to.
Well, I think it's a little silly too, how the start of the episode, he's so injured. Obi-Wan can't walk, he's unconscious, they're dragging him to the back to tank. You know, he wakes up at some point through those visions of Vader or what have you. And, you know, everybody's saying, like, you need to heal, you need to heal. You know, he's only been in there a short period of time. We don't know how long exactly. And now here he is, swimming really far distances, running through hallways, doing, you know, extreme force holds with holding back that water, killing the 2 stormtroopers before Leia got tortured. It seems like he went from I can barely walk to I'm in perfect health really pretty quickly with no real healing process in there. It seemed like it was kind of a bit of a stretch.
I would agree to a point. I know backup tanks can probably do wonders. I don't think Luke was in it very long in episode 5 before he was good to go. But I could see a little bit of leeway there, that maybe it was a little too short, because even when Boba in the book of Boba Fett was in his back to tank sessions, he would come out like perfect, and then he'd have to go back and recoup, so to speak. But
Tony,
yeah.
What did you think, Tony?
So I'm going to try something a little different this week, because last week I went on a pretty hard rant about my disappointment of the show, and spoiler alert, my thoughts wholesale really haven't changed a whole lot, because I still have the thoughts I had last week, and I agree with pretty much everything you two just said. But I'm going to try something a little different. I am going to talk about the moments in the episode that I actually enjoyed. And spoiler alert, they are the moments that kind of peek into the type of show that I thought this should have been. And they are these. The edit between, like I said in the recap, Obi-Wan and Vader, I thought that was really cool. That relationship, I thought should have been the crux of the show. The Obi-Wan going down that hallway with the Jedi that have been captured and kind of encased in those things. I don't know what they are. Again, darker tone. That's what I wanted with this show. I thought the way that, not as a callback to The Force Awakens, but just as a scene, as a visual, I thought Obi-Wan taking out the stormtroopers in the dark was really cool. I did like the moments. I'm iffy on how the sequence was kind of executed, but just the idea of Obi-Wan kind of getting his groove back and fending off the stormtroopers and holding on to the glass. I thought those moments were cool because, again, I don't think I mentioned this specifically last week, but I thought this episode or the show should have been a character study of Obi-Wan, not Obi-Wan and his pals. So seeing anything with his personal growth, I think, is really cool. Darth Vader storming down a hallway literally made me say, "Oh, expletive," out loud, even though I was the only one home. Like that genuinely frightened me. So that was cool. I think there was, I wonder if there's something else. I think that was kind of it, but I mean, that's a good handful of things that I genuinely enjoyed. You know, for my own sort of mental health and putting positive vibes out there, I think I'm going to stop there, because I could pick apart this episode to death, but I don't want to do that. I'm going to stay with the positivity. So there you go. And see.
I do think it's cool that they're showing that Kenobi is getting stronger and stronger as the show is progressing. The holding back the water is definitely something that would be really tough. So I thought that was a good way to kind of show where he's getting, because I'm pretty sure I mentioned in a previous episode that I feel like this show feels like a Rocky, like as a Rocky Balboa, Obi-Wan Kenobi show. And that might be part of his, like, quote unquote training montage of showing he's building and becoming stronger. That way, if he has a second battle with Vader, he will be a bit more tip-top shape.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Not to interrupt, but those Jedi that we saw in the hallway that were like frozen in goo, if you will, or some sort of like amber looking liquid, how do you think they killed them in a way that they stayed frozen in those positions? Because they looked all like they had really frightened faces on them. They weren't just sitting there like you would see somebody sitting in a coffin.
I don't think they killed them. I think they did that when they were alive.
Just stuck them in the goo and made them suffocate, I guess.
Kind of like carbonite.
Mm-hmm.
We do know one of the Jedi. I didn't recognize him at first. I saw, through other things that he was from the Clone Wars, one of those.
Yeah, I didn't notice it right away. I was wondering why the camera stuck on him for so long.
Yeah, I didn't recognize any of the other ones. I was kind of hoping we were going to see some other ones that we may recognize.
Wasn't the child one from the first episode sequence when they showed the Padawans trying to escape?
Very well could be.
It was the same actor.
Yeah, he still had the helmet.
Yeah. Because that was the only one I recognized.
I think something that would have been like striking is like seeing a one-armed Mace Windu or something.
Oh man.
Like a shock factor. Because I felt like it was subtle when they showed everybody. Because at first I was starting to wonder if these were in fact Jedi, because some of them looked like townspeople, but then I had to remember these people are in hiding, so that's why they don't look like Jedi. They're not supposed to be in my opinion, like Kenobi running around in Jedi robes. So, but I do have a question about that. I was thinking about it, and I was trying to give a little more understanding to, what's going on, because obviously we all have our thoughts on how Kenobi looks and how he's getting around everywhere. And I was thinking about it in episode 4, A New Hope, when they're in the Death Star and they're running around with, supposedly high security. Kenobi is also doing the exact same thing. He's in his Jedi robes and he's, making his way through the Death Star. So would you entertain the thought that the writers are actually doing what they're supposed to and making a proper connection with that?
That was probably the attempt, potentially. I don't think it transferred very well.
I'm not defending the trench coat part, only the other stuff.
Yeah, I would need to process it a little bit, but just, this is gonna sound so like cliche, but like the vibe was different.
I would agree.
In what happened in Obi-Wan versus A New Hope, like it seemed to fit better in episode 4, A New Hope, than episode 4 of Obi-Wan. So that was potentially the attempt of the writers, but I don't think it was executed very well.
To be fair, in episode 4, he didn't know he was going to the Death Star, so he wasn't dressed to go to the Death Star.
Right.
Whereas here, he knew he was going to the fortress, and he decided to dress the way he did.
Which him dressing like that in his robes, I don't think is inherently a bad thing, but actually make it look like he's actually sneaking around and not just, oh, here's a single droid, let me go around this corner. You know what I mean? Like if that place is supposed to be so highly guarded, I would imagine there'd be like stormtroopers in every hallway.
Yeah. Kind of like how they had in because he was running around and dodging tons of stormtroopers, which there was also a connection in this show to when he's walking around the Death Star specifically, when there was 2 stormtroopers and he used the Force to make a noise happen. He did that in A New Hope as well. I think right after he shut down the tractor beam. But
something as a side note that you just reminded me of that I thought was kind of neat was when he was in the hallways and he kind of ducked behind those little pillars. So in Lego Star Wars, there were different hallways you could run down and whatnot, and you could go behind the pillars to find extra coins or collectibles or whatever. But to me, it always seemed kind of weird. Like, why are there are these weird spots on the side of the hallway that's like dark, so there's no. It seemed like it was supposed to be just a straight hallway. I didn't understand why I could go behind these pillars. It seemed kind of, I don't know, like they just threw it in there for the sake of the game to find something for you to find. But then in the show, Obi-Wan was also able to go behind these pillars. So it seemed like, I don't know, between the game and the show, they both matched up. And so I thought that was kind of neat to see that they didn't just make it up for the sake of the game.
He was probably looking for those collectibles.
He might have been.
Yeah. Mini kits.
Yes.
Any other thoughts on the episode?
I do. I have something I kind of want to allude to. I meant to mention this last week. I kind of forgot in my rant. But I've been saying a lot these last few weeks, you know, the show that I think it should be, the show that I want. And I'm kind of doing that for the sake of this YouTube show and for the sake of conversation. But I think it is important to put out there that when you assess film, TV, movies, whatever, even, I mean, really any storytelling medium, it is important to remember that you need to try to assess what you have versus what you want it to be. So if you constantly judge something by what you want it to be, you are never going to be satisfied. It is better to just take what you have and assess it. So I think that's an important message to put out there. I know, like I said, I'm not following that rule very well, but I'm kind of doing it more for the sake of conversation and whatnot. And like I said, kind of for my own sanity too, because if I followed that rule, I would just be bitter on here all the time. Because if I just fully went to, you know, what the show is, the show is dog crap. I'm not gonna lie. Like if I went fully to that, it's just not great. So I'm trying to find bits of hope and little nuggets in there that I can be like, oh, that's kind of what I think it should be, and that. So that's kind of where I'll leave things. It's just an important PSA for all of you.
I would agree. It's actually what is. It'll never be my favorite, but it is what reels me back a little by little for The Last Jedi. You know, like you said, it's something that has happened. It may not have been what I wanted, but it did happen, and there are things in there that you can appreciate really well.
Mm-hmm.
I think we could do a whole video on that, honestly. But yeah, there's nothing that we can do about it. It is what it is, and I think we can just hope for the best. You know, there's 2 episodes left, and there's so many things that could still happen. We could still have, you know, another epic battle between Vader and Kenobi.
They better, because if that was it, I'm gonna be mad.
I don't think it'll be it. I do think it's interesting because, you know, when I heard that there's supposed to be this big rematch between the two, I was thinking like, you know, it's going to be as epic, or at least somewhat as epic as episode 3.
Mm-hmm.
But I kind of wonder if it's going to be, I don't want to say sequel-ish as far as the fight, because they're striking difference between the two. But I think we have to remember where we're heading towards. We're heading towards A New Hope, and their fighting styles were completely different than episode 3. And I do believe that the fight that we had already was way more reminiscent of episode 4 as opposed to episode 3. So I think we have to reassess our expectations of how that fight's going to be, just because of where we're heading.
That's a good point. And it's on to add on to that, the fight in A New Hope was supposed to be reminiscent of samurai films, which is a heavy influence on Star Wars, a bit slower, a bit more methodical. That's how like old samurai movies are. So yeah, so if when there's another rematch with them, it's probably going to be more reminiscent of that. Very similar to in Mandalorian season 2, I think it was Ahsoka, like the Ahsoka episode. It was between her and the leader of the town that they were in. Do you remember that?
Oh, yeah. Yep.
Yeah, so it's probably going to be a bit closer to that, is my guess.
Yeah, I was also thinking it might be similar to the Kenobi and Maul sequence.
Yeah, that's a good, yeah.
Because once again, that's where we're heading. So,
Yeah.
He's going to have to get that transition to that fighting style at some point. This could be the bridge.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think you've seen that fight. It's very, very simple.
Yep, about 30 seconds.
Yeah. So yeah, I think I could probably speak for the three of us that we're very hopeful for these next 2 episodes, and I think we're somewhat
in a very meta way.
Yeah, prepared to see what happens.
I'm curious to see what happens after Leia gets back to safety, if she ever does. How does the story progress without her?
Yeah.
As much as I like her, I want to see how it progresses without her.
Well, somehow she gets on a rebel ship, so.
Yeah, I want, as much as I am looking forward to the Vader and Kenobi potential fight, which I'm pretty sure it's guaranteed it's going to happen, I want to know what's happening with the Grand Inquisitor. This cannot go silent, especially since the writers have, said we're not going to break canon. So I'm curious to see how he comes back into play. It's funny because I don't know if we mentioned this on the previous episode, but recently Sarah and I went to like a random toy store in the mall, and they had the Inquisitor figure from Rebels, and it came with his helmet. And I'm almost wondering if he's going to be in his helmet and then do something and then take off his mask, and then we'll see him to kind of connect those pieces. But we'll see. We got 2 episodes, so we'll find out. Any others?
They better blow my socks off.
I hope so too, Tony.
They probably won't, but they better.
I think I want to believe that there's going to be some sort of Empire Rebellion clash to some degree near the end of this. Just because now that they are involved, like the small little rebellion, we got a little bit of a taste of that snowspeeder blowing up some things on the base. Maybe we'll get a little somewhat epic conclusion, not just between Kenobi and Vader, but the other stuff too, between the Empire and the Rebels. Yeah. Sound good for the week? Cool. Well, if you enjoyed this video, make sure to turn on your notifications. That way you are notified when the next Kenobi discussion drops. So again, we have 2 episodes left, so make sure to be here with us while we discuss it. Please subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Drop us a like if you like this video, and drop us a comment with your thoughts on this week's episode of Kenobi. And then, as always, everybody, thank you for watching. We'll see you next time.